I've almost been playing Dynasty for 10 years now. I started playing Dynasty back in 2014. And in my close to 10-year career playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, I don't ever remember something like this. Now, of course, every offseason, running backs get moved. Every offseason, situations change. But we have three storms of brewing right now. We have some elite running back prospects in the NFL draft coming through. We have a massive free agent running back class. And then we have veterans that are possibly going to get cut. These are three massive events that are all going to occur at the same time. And I don't know if a single backfield is going to be the same when it's all said and done. So I want to go through, I want to try to look at the running back landscape and how it may change this offseason. Talk about what we could potentially do to put ourselves in a position to benefit from it. But before we get into anything, please make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. Only if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, you're only going to find Dynasty content here. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the comment section. And in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy, where you can get into a ton of drafts with us. Or if you want to, you can check out all these player props. And when you sign up for Underdog today and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. And you're going to get a free Patrick Mahomes bet. I could not be more proud that we're able to get you this. This is only for people who use promo code FLOCK. But that should be it in the first chapter of this. Let's go through and let's look at the free agent class of running backs that we have coming in. So leading us off, you have Mr. Saquon Barkley. Don't know if you've heard of the man, but he's pretty good. You're going to have to trust me on this one. We really haven't seen a big name running back like this hit free agency, because remember that 2017 class that was led off with guys like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. I mean, you had Leonard Fournette, you had Joe Mixon, you had Dalvin Cook, you had James Conner. There were so many running backs there, and 90% of them saw extensions by the time their rookie deal ended. Now, a couple of those extensions are probably going to get cut a little short. We'll talk about those running backs at the end. But regardless, those guys signed extensions before their rookie deals were over. Saquon Barkley, the Giants decided not to give him that extension because of his injury history. I mean, you can't blame him. It was back-to-back very down years for Saquon Barkley. But now they're in a position where, hell, he can go test out what being a free agent's like if he doesn't love what's going on in New York. We have someone named Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas as well, that it seemed like everybody had given up on. I mean, at least everybody in the Dynasty community, everybody in the redraft community. If you played fantasy football, seems like most people gave up on Josh Jacobs. I'll say my most drafted running back this year, so I'm a little excited about it. But this is a running back that is going to be hitting free agency. He's a month older than Najee Harris. I'm recording this the day after he drops a 300-yard performance against the Seattle Seahawks. And let me reiterate, he is 1 month older than Najee Harris. Drafted in 2019. They could have hit him with the 5th-year tag. They could have extended him. They decided not to, and now he's going to get paid significantly more because of it. We have Tony Pollard, who's gone through and excelled with every opportunity he has had. I mean, if we look at Tony Pollard's entire career and you compare his yards per carry at the end of every season next to Ezekiel Elliott's of that same year, Pollard has crushed him. Now, I know yards per carry is not a perfect statistic, but still, he's been hyper efficient. We saw that he can be a 3-down running back. He can excel in a starting role if a team wants to give him that ability, and maybe this offseason he may get that because he's not under contract next year with Dallas. David Montgomery is going to be a running back that could potentially be out of Chicago. Miles Sanders is a running back that could potentially be out of Philadelphia. Damian Harris may be out of New England. Jet Wilson Jr. may be out of Miami. Jamal Williams may be out of Detroit. Deontay Foreman out of Carolina. Devin Singletary out of Buffalo. I mean, Alexander Madison out of Minnesota, and Rashad Penny out of Seattle. That is a long list. A long list of free agents, my friends. Now, of course, a lot of these guys may get re-signed. I think the assumption would be those guys at the very top, the Saquon Barkley of this free agent class, he is most likely going to be going back to the Giants. But we can still be putting ourselves in a position where maybe a few of those lower names, maybe someone like David Montgomery, you may position yourself in a way that if he does leave Chicago, if Chicago decides not to bring him back, maybe you want to go through, maybe you want to be picking up a Khalil Herbert type of running back. We'll get to exactly how you can position yourself at the end of this video. I just want to more so paint the picture. And now going over to what we are going to have with the potential running backs getting cut this offseason. Now, of course, I do not think all these running backs are going to get cut. But what I want to do is I want to look at running backs that are getting paid a lot of money right now. And we know that the NFL cares less and less about these RBs. We know that the NFL is more and more willing to just get rid of them a year too early rather than a year too late and decide, you know what, we're not necessarily too interested in giving Aaron Jones an extra $10 million. So if we go through, if we look at the running backs that are potentially going to get let go of, just here are the teams that could save money. Joe Mixon, you could save $7 million. Now, I think Joe Mixon's going to stay in Cincinnati. We're going to throw these guys in two different buckets. The veteran running backs on contending teams and the veteran running backs on rebuilding teams. Joe Mixon, obvious contending team in Cincinnati. There's no reason for them to try to save the $7 million. I think Mixon's safe. Dalvin Cook, I would say he goes in the same bucket. Dalvin Cook, going to be safe. They could save $8 million by letting go of Dalvin Cook, but come on, the Minnesota Vikings have been crushing it. I'm assuming they hold him outside of a catastrophic injury. Now going over to the New Orleans Saints, this is where it gets a little interesting. They could decide to save almost $8 million by letting go of Alvin Kamara. And if you look at the cap situation the New Orleans Saints find themselves in, if you look at just the overall roster construction stance that the Saints have, and the fact that, in my opinion, they are not close to competing for this division, I don't want to say it's likely that Alvin Kamara is let go. I don't want to say it's likely that Alvin Kamara is shipped out. But if you are the New Orleans Saints and you decide that you're going to rebuild, you're going to tank, and you don't want to pay Alvin Kamara the $8 million in a season he may be suspended, that could be a spot where you decide to save some money. Aaron Jones, another running back. You can save about $10.5 million by letting go of Aaron Jones. Now, of course, at this moment, I mean, the Green Bay Packers look like they're pushing in to win right now, or are they? Yeah, they give the extension to Aaron Rodgers this offseason, but they go through, they trade Davante Adams to save some money. They then get an extra first-round pick for Davante Adams as if they're posturing to go through and compete down the line. So we're already seeing this trend from the Green Bay Packers that they're possibly going through and chipping off some of these incredible veteran assets to bring in future capital as well as save those dollars on a team that may not be contending. And I don't know if you've checked in on the Green Bay Packers this year, but let me just do a quick little Google search to show you that the Packers are currently sitting at 4-8. There's an outside chance Rodgers wants out this offseason. And then the Cowboys could save $5 million for moving on from Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke's going to be another year in Dallas, I have a feeling. Very similar to Dalvin, very similar to Mixon. These teams have no interest in moving on from these veteran running backs. You pay them because you're contending, and they're going to help you win. So the two running backs that I think could realistically be seeing different homes next year that are those 2017 class of RBs, those extremely talented options, possibly, and I repeat, just possibly, Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones. But if we throw their names on the list of all the free agent running backs, and then we look at the fact that you have a couple big name running backs in this year's NFL draft. You obviously have the guys like Bijan Robinson. You have the Jahmyr Gibbs of the world who are going to come in and they're going to demand, a starting role day one. These aren't running backs that you go through, put on the back burner, and you're like, okay, they're the future of our team. No. Bijan Robinson, this is a Saquon Barkley. This is an Ezekiel Elliott, the rookie type situation. He's the guy day one. He's arguably the dynasty running back one overall day one. So we have to be prepared for that. Those are going to be two rookie running backs that are finding themselves in great spots. And obviously, we have a handful of day two and day three running backs as well that are going to be in the mix. So if we think about how we should be positioning ourselves, here are a list of running backs that you could possibly go out there and try to acquire before a bump in value, before these backfields start shifting. James Cook is going to be a name where James Cook, has not done much at all his rookie season, but the Buffalo Bills did decide to use a second-round draft pick on James Cook, and Devin Singletary's not under contract. So if you look at the actions taking place by the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, it screams that they don't have long-term plans for Devin Singletary. They tried to sign J.D. McKissic in the offseason. When that didn't work out, when that fell through, they took James Cook in the second round. Then they trade for Nyheim Hines in the middle of the year. Hines isn't going to be here next season. So that tells me that, hell, maybe James Cook is a running back that gets a bump next season. If we're looking at another name, Khalil Herbert, that we already mentioned with the Chicago Bears. I mean, I know that they trade away a big blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Chicago is going to be in a position where they can be super excited to go through, re-sign David Montgomery when this team is right now dead last in the NFC. Looks like they're playing for nothing anytime soon. I would say this roster has so many more worries than just a running back that David Montgomery could be leaving. So Khalil Herbert could be that intriguing name. Damian Harris, with his departure, this is a possibility that the New England Patriots have seen enough from Ramondre Stevenson. Where they go, Ramondre, you can't be that 3-down player for us. Ramondre, you can be our workhorse running back. Maybe you want to acquire a Ramondre Stevenson. If you want to look at any of the other running backs on this list, I mean, like I said, I think the big name players like Barkley, Jacobs most likely end up on the rosters they're currently with. Of course, we can go look at maybe Zamir White if you really think Jacobs is going to force his way out of Las Vegas. Miles Sanders falls in that bucket of running backs that he's on a contending roster. I know the Philadelphia Eagles at times haven't showed that they love Miles Sanders, but I think that they would be willing to bring him back because they are looking to win right now. So outside of going through and positioning yourself in a way where maybe we're trying to pick up a few of these backup running backs at extreme discounts right now, there are actually better things to do, in my opinion, because I know that's the easy answer. What I think you need to be a little bit more creative with is we need to accept the fact that there is so much uncertainty that we really don't know what's going to happen with these backfields. I mean, this can go in so many different directions. So instead of trying to predict situations as they may lay in 2023, instead of trying to guess right now at the end of November, the beginning of December, what those situations may be like, why don't we bet on talent? Why don't we bet on talent and then let the chips fall how they may? I mean, maybe you go through and say, okay, Tony Pollard is a running back. I've seen enough. I think that he is talented enough. I think wherever he goes, he's going to have a role and he can score points in my fantasy lineup. If that is your stance, I'm not telling you exactly what to do. I want you to evaluate this for yourself. You go through, maybe you try to acquire Tony Pollard, and with all these moving pieces, if that's the guy you want to bet on, maybe he is a player that falls in that starting role. Now, I am not even going to do that. I am not going to try to predict situations. I am not going to try to quote unquote bet on talent. I am going to admit the fact that I am an idiot. I'm going to admit the fact that I think going through and taking these hard stances, while they may be profitable, at the end of the day, they are risky. I mean, it is risky going through saying, okay, I really think that David Montgomery is going to leave Chicago. Let me go through, pay up for Khalil Herbert, and then David Montgomery resigns. And then yet again, you have the backup running back in the league's worst offense. So instead of taking that risk where this is a ton of uncertainty, what I'm going to be doing instead is I'm going to be stepping out of the arena. I'm going to be letting the other people in my league, they can take the guesses. They can take their shots. I'm going to step out of the arena. I am going to collect paychecks with these running backs in the form of future draft picks, whether that's picking up an extra second. Maybe I trade one of these running backs and my second to get an extra first. That way we can allow those rookie picks to just accumulate value on our roster. Now, of course, I mean, if you're a contending team, that's going to be a little bit different. You have to take this for the direction of your own roster. But if we accumulate those draft picks, we can't lose. We know that those picks are only going to go in one direction. We know that those picks are only going to increase in value by the time we get to the NFL draft. So say right now you go through and you go, okay, yeah. People are very excited about Khalil Herbert and his potential that he is going to be the starting running back for the Chicago Bears. I will be the first person to admit, I don't know what this situation is going to be like when we sit 6 months from now. So why don't I try to find that guy in my league that really likes Khalil Herbert, that wants to make that bet? And why don't I be the guy to sell Khalil Herbert, pick up a second and a third round pick. That way, by the time our rookie draft comes through, if at that point, when we have all the information of where these players went in free agency, where these rookies went in the NFL draft, I am able to hand select with those rookie picks that are equivalent to just the United States dollar. Anybody will take it. In your Dynasty League, we're able to handpick the running backs that we like in the situations that we understand at that moment. So what I would urge you to do is have a great understanding of the uncertainty that we are facing at the running back position. Position yourself in a way where it's difficult for you to be a loser this offseason. And that is by going through collecting these rookie picks and then before the season, looking at the situations that you like and going and acquire those running backs in those given situations. But I think that's all I got for you. Please go down to the comment section. I know this was a little bit of a sporadic video. Let me know what you think. Of course, in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy where there are all these player props. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. And on top of this, you are going to be able to get this free Patrick Mahomes bet, which I'm super excited that we're able to bring you only with promo code FLOCK. Subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you again. I truly do appreciate you. I'm going to try getting you Dynasty videos very often here. So hopefully we get to see you with a Dynasty video tomorrow.